Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Client Success Customer Support Executive Brain Trust post-event panel discussion. We just finished up an hour discussing health metrics and having a great discussion in breakout rooms, and also a fantastic lightning speaker, Steve Fiore. So with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Steve to kind of summarize what he talked about, and then I'm going to open it up to this panel discussion to continue to give their insights on some of the health metrics they use to look at their customer and their customer health metrics. So with that, Steve, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Steve Fiore, Senior Director at Customer Experience at Teradata. So the main focus of the presentation was how do you drive value within the customer success organization? And to do that, we needed to hone in on the metrics that we were measuring and driving within the organization, specifically around, we narrowed it down to kind of three main factors focus around reducing cancel and erosions. Some organizations call it churn. Second was measuring the health and the early warning system within the organization. And then the third was how do we drive some growth, showing innovation around our artificial intelligence AI innovation days. The outside of the content itself, the main driver that really helped us as an organization was it helped focus our entire set of people around a common goal, a common message, and that way everybody was marching to the same goal, and that was the big thing that we needed within the organization.
Excellent, Steve. And you definitely, during your presentation, got my mind thinking quite a bit about customers and how to look at them differently and look at them as a persona and what their needs are. So appreciated that. And so after your discussion, we moved into breakout rooms. And, of course, we've got client success executives and leaders, and we've also got customer support executives and leaders. And we gave them the prompt to share some of the health metrics that they monitor and the reason why they monitor them, and then maybe some of the ones that they don't like so much and maybe want to strengthen or completely replace. And so we spoke in breakout rooms for about 30 minutes. And now I'd love to open it up to the rest of the group to kind of share some of your takeaways, maybe some of the things that you are looking at yourself. So, Maddie, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think unsurprisingly, we were all of us, regardless of what vertical we were in or like what type of customer base we have, we were all measuring sort of the classic CSAT, NPS customer effort as like those are the baseline ones, and none of us like them. But we're all measuring like, and there's, and especially I think NPS has become kind of a joke just internally within the company I was with, where it's like, do we really think that people who are promoters are out of the blue talking about our products to people that they know with no prompting? That has nothing to do with like, that's not a real thing. There's no such thing as promoters. Like you might if you got into an organic conversation, but the chances of that happening are really low. And I feel like if NPS was a real indicator of anything, your word of mouth business would grow like crazy if you had good NPS. But it usually is not the case. Like you can have good NPS and there's no real connection with like sort of how your revenue is doing, right? So to me, it's like a very like it's not what it advertises itself to be necessarily. Um, I think the thing that I would be most curious about, and not just from you, Steve, but sort of generally from the group, is I'm coming from a background of more like B2C or direct, or D2C. And, for somebody in that space, we're dealing with a lot of volume. There's a lot of transactional interactions, and there's a lot of fleeting. You sort of see a customer once, you don't see them again for a year. They come back a year later and buy something else from you from your e-commerce store. But there isn't really the same kind of relationship building that Steve, that I think you guys are working through with your customers. And I'm just curious for anyone on this call, what do you think the takeaways from this are for someone in a situation where, you might get 20,000 contacts a month and it's all essentially unique customers or relatively unique?
So I'll start, and it's not a direct correlation, but it may be something for you to think about. Um, because we also sell the hardware and the software, and we're getting all the customer support issues that come in. we have a lot of customers that have lots of high severity calls that come in. Systems down, we have to resolve it, and the company automatically goes to, well, customers that have a lot of those um, are are at higher risk. And and the reality is, if you're at the extreme end, yes, that if you're constantly having issues, but
Yeah.
what we're finding is there is a sweet spot that you want to actually have customers submit S1s and S2s, severity one, severity twos for us, um, because we have some other customers that never submit any tickets. The system never goes down. The system never has issues. And one would think, well, that's great. But I look at it as they're not taxing the system enough. They're not pushing us hard enough to run into issues. So it may not be the customers that are calling into your call center for issues. It might be the customers that aren't engaging with you at all.
Not calling in. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So just a thought to spark a
That is
little bit.
actually a really interesting idea of like sort of contacting people who never have a problem and always get their packages on time and like, making sure you're checking in with them. But you sort of
Yeah.
think like, no news is good news. But yeah.
Great conversation. Great thoughts. Michael, I'm going to call on you just because one of your group members also in our chat highlighted some of the things that you were sharing about hard KPIs and identifying opportunities. So would you mind jumping into that?
Absolutely. Thank you. So I would run reports every month where I would pull the last logins of all of our users, right? I would want to see when's the last time one of our customers was using our software. Particular attention would be placed on our champion or the admin or the super user. When did that person last log in? Also, since we relied on our customers to actually send us data feeds every day so that they could get the most out of our software, I would check and see who hasn't sent us an interface file, in a few days or in a week. Because if you're not updating the data continuously in our software, there's really no value in it. So we could tell right away that that might be a potential issue. I was going to think there were probably a couple other areas I checked. Users last logins, transactions too. Also ran transaction numbers just to make sure month over month that they remain steady. We saw a precipitous drop over a month or two. We knew we had to pay a little closer attention and alert everyone to kind of chip in and contact that customer. But also as being one of the main point people in support for a very small startup for many years, I was kind of the face and the voice, and I would talk to my customers constantly. So I had a great idea who was happy and who wasn't. We had 50 enterprise customers. So anytime someone in sales or my boss or maybe even professional services would come over and be like, hey, when's the last time you spoke to ABC? I'd be like, this is what's going on. This is how they're feeling. And this is the information you should probably know before you get on a phone call with them. So kind of a mix of both, data I'm pulling from the database, but also just subjective information from conversations, emails, etc.
That's great, Michael. Coming from client success, I have to say, in the past, a lot of times I looked at membership as kind of like a gym membership. Just because you have a gym membership, one, doesn't mean that you're healthy, and two, doesn't mean that you're going to the gym. But I think there's probably a lot of us out there that are like, we kind of run a gym membership and we really don't want to look at last login numbers because if we did, a majority of them probably haven't logged in at all. At least I've been in a situation like that. But of course, the difference is getting client success, customer support to tackle that very issue. So you have to face that dragon. I mean, you have to face that dragon and just tackle it head on. And so there's a lot of unique ways to do that. As we look to finish up this panel, any other last thoughts on measuring customer health?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out I was fortunate to be in my breakout session with Rahil, who I see is already here, but I want to toot his horn a little bit. If you look in the chat, he has this massive post of all of the numbers. I think this was mentioned earlier, but there's so many different ideas for metrics. That'd be a good, not that every company should use each and every one of them, but just for a source of ideas, are there any there that might be relevant or even lend itself to other ideas for, because there is no one number to rule them all. You got to have a bunch of different things, and having this list of ideas is super useful. I'm actually going to copy this off and save it for myself for some future use.
Excellent. Excellent point. Rahil, if you want to weigh in, feel free.
Yes, I think based on my experience, I'm working in different industry. Everyone carrying a different experience. I'm from cybersecurity, from data company, and we use different kind of a matrix to come up with a health scorecard. And it consists of customer success metrics and similarly customer support metrics, right? So we are trying to combine and seeing the manual entries to be avoided, and we are going to utilize more and more AI. AI is perfect? No, it's not. But we are trying to use and leverage and see how we can use and some of the nuances we can remove from the system. That's what, and this is how we are trying to generate a health scorecard, which help us building and seeing what customer is looking for and how we can improve the customer experience.
Great point, Rahil. I think a lot of this too has to depend on you as a leader and what your organization's customer support and client success strategy is and what the business model allows you to do. One of my takeaways was, and Rahil, I think this kind of piggybacks off what you're talking about. And I'm probably making some assumptions here, but I think it'll be applicable. Steve, you're going after Fortune 5s. You guys went out and you met with 200 customers and you did these AI meetings with them. So very, very involved from a resource perspective. You've got a lot of involvement with your customers. There are other people that, because of how much they're charging and how much and what the contract looks like, they just don't have those kinds of resources especially if you're going after SMB. And that is going to dictate what your strategy is. And so Rahil, when you were speaking, that's what I was thinking about is here are some great metrics that you can use that enable you to keep track of health, but maybe not having those really long, detailed conversations that it sounds like, Steve, that you're able to have with your clients because you have that really one-to-one relationship. And so I think you have to take that into consideration. Okay, well, everyone, thank you so much for your participation. Thank you all for coming to the Customer Support Client Success Executive Brain Trust. And of course, we want to thank Y Meadows and the founder, CEO, Alan Rich, for putting this together. We'll see you all at next month's event.